Hey guys, welcome to lesson 3 of module 3. In this video, we're going to start working on our Xcode project. As you can see, the goals for this lesson is to finish setting up our Xcode project and UI. We're going to add the assets to our project. We're going to set up the background. We're going to set up the project so that it's in landscape orientation. We're going to add the collection view, and we'll get to what that looks like in a second. And finally, we're going to add a collection view cell. All right, so let's dive into Xcode. We're going to create a brand new Xcode project, and it's going to be the single view app template under the iOS tab. Let's click next, and for the product name, I'm going to call it the Match app, and the rest of the details should be left the same, and just make sure that the language is Swift and you can leave all of these things unchecked. Go ahead and click next, and I'm just going to save this project on my desktop for now, but you can save it anywhere you'd like. And we're not going to have a source control checked there. Just click create. And the first thing we're going to do is actually add the assets into our asset library. So below this video, you're going to find a link to download the zip file containing all of the images. Go ahead and download that now and save it somewhere. I've got mine saved on the desktop right here. I'm going to unzip this file by double clicking it, and it's going to pop out a folder. Inside that folder is going to contain a series of images for this project. Now it's also going to contain the icon in this icon folder, but you don't need to add that for now. So just highlight everything else, all of these images right here, except for the icon folder. And then you can go ahead and drag that into your asset library like that. And what you should get is you should get background, and you should have cards 1 all the way to 13. Next, we're going to go into our main.storyboard, and we're going to set up the background. Since this app primarily is going to be in the landscape orientation, we can take this opportunity now to restrict this app to only displaying in landscape orientations. The way you do that is actually in here in the project settings under the general tab. If you scroll down a little bit and under deployment info, you're going to find device orientation. You can uncheck portrait and you can leave upside down unchecked, and just leave landscape left and landscape right checked on. And that's going to limit the orientations for this app to just the landscape orientations. Going back into our main.storyboard, it still shows us this portrait orientation, but as you know, this is only how we are viewing the layout. It's not actually how the app is going to look on a device, because remember, we can click this view as part and we can view it under any sort of device or orientation. So to make things easier for us when we're laying the elements out, let's just switch it to landscape orientation like this, so that what we see as we're laying the elements out and as we're designing our user interface is also going to match up with how it's going to look when it's launched in the simulator. All right, so now in the lower right hand corner in this object library, make sure you're looking at this object tab. We're going to type in UI image view, or just the image view, and we're going to add this element into our view like that. And next we're going to put some constraints for it. So make sure your image view is highlighted and click this button here to add new constraints. We are going to uncheck constraint margins. Okay, and we're just going to click this little drop down for the top constraint and change it from safe area to view, because we really want this to go the full edge. And we're going to do the same thing down here, change that to view, and we're going to do that for all of these 4 sides. And then just change all of these values to 0. Like that, we're going to add these 4 constraints, and now we can go up here in the inspector pane for the image view, change the image property to the background. Now that our background is done, we can think about how we're going to lay out the cards. And as you saw from the app preview, the cards are laid out in this sort of grid-like fashion. Well, UIKit actually has an element to display collections of data like that in that sort of grid-like fashion, and that is called the collection view. Let's take a look at some examples of the collection view in action. If you've ever used an iPhone, you have probably used a collection view before. Here are just a few examples of collection views. And if you've ever used the Photos app on your iPhone, that is a collection view as well. Anytime you need to display a sort of like grid-like layout of elements, then chances are a collection view is going to fit the bill. When you're using a collection view, the part I've highlighted on the screen is actually the whole collection view, but each item inside the collection view is a cell. And that cell is basically just repeated for every single item that you want to display in your collection. So in our example, our collection view would also fill up the whole screen, but each cell would be one of the cards. So let's go back to Xcode now and let's add the collection view to our storyboard. Let's go down to the object library and look up the collection view. This is also a UIKit class. So there are a couple things that pop up. You want to choose collection view here, not the collection view controller, not the collection view cell, not any of these things. You want the collection view. Let's click and drag that over here. And what we're going to do is just stretch it so that it covers the entire screen pretty much. So have that collection view highlighted and just enable all four. This time we are going to leave it as constraint to margins, and we are also just going to leave it set to the safe area because we don't want any part of our collection view covered up. So it's best to play within that safe area. And we are just going to set zeros for all of that. And just to mention, the reason why we didn't do the safe area for the background was because the background is not typically something that the user will interact with. So it's okay if part of the background is covered up or a bit of it is obscured. All right, so the collection view right now, we have set it to be pretty much full screen. And if you expand it in the document outline like this, you're going to see a single collection view cell. Now in this video, we're simply going to set up some of the elements in that collection view cell, but I'm not going to go into the details about how you use the collection view because I'm going to do that in the next video. So for now, we are just going to add some of the elements which we need into this collection view cell. So right now, this cell doesn't really have a size, and we're going to set a temporary size for it, just because we know what size this image is going to be. Now, just keep in mind that even though we are kind of setting a temporary size now, so it makes it a little easier to customize this cell, it isn't going to be the final size when the app actually runs, because through Xcode, we are going to dynamically take a look at what sort of device the user is using, how much space in terms of the width they have got, and then we are going to programmatically divide that space up so that it fits 4 cards nicely, and then we are going to set the actual size of the cell through code. But for now, we are going to set this cell size a little larger so it doesn't look like this tiny square and it's a little hard to work with. So we're going to go into the asset library, click on any one of the cards, choose this tab in the inspector view, and I just want to take a look at the size of the image. So I'm actually going to have to select the 1x one as well. Don't select the 2x or the 3x because that will actually give you a larger size than the image actually is, because after all, this is 2 times the size and this is 3 times the size. So let's take a look at the 1x, and if we are on the correct tab and you scroll down, you're going to see the image size 158 by 224. We're going to go back to the storyboard here and let us highlight the collection view itself, go under the size inspector, and we can specify the cell size. So that was 158 by 224, like that, and you can see that cell size change. So now it's the size of a single card. Again, it's not going to be the final size because we're going to do that programmatically. Okay, the next thing we want to do is let's add 2 image views to this cell. So down here, let's choose type in image view, and then let's drag the image view into the cell, just like that. And in your document outline, you should see that this image view is actually underneath, this cell, and when you collapse it, that image view should be tucked into that cell. So that tells you it's actually inside the cell and not outside of it. So now let's add some constraints to that image view. Make sure you have it highlighted by selecting it. And then down here under add new constraints, we are going to just go like that, all 4, and let's make them all zeros, add 4 of them. And that is going to make the image view stick to all 4 sides. One more thing we want to do just right now is if you still have the image view highlighted and you go into this attributes inspector, change the content mode to aspect fit. And that is going to make sure that the image displayed in that image view is not stretched, and it's going to be the size that fits within that cell. All right, now we're going to add another image view into our collection view cell, because the trick here is we're going to have one image view displaying the back of the card and the other image view displaying the front of the card. And we're just going to transition between those two image views to simulate the flipping of the card. And so now, while we still have image view selected in this object library, let's drag it into the collection view cell again. So there it is. In here, you should see that there are two image views underneath the collection view cell, and when you collapse the cell, both of them should be tucked in. All right, so let's highlight this one, which we just added, and we're going to add the same constraints to it. Just like that, add 4 constraints, and we are also going to set the content mode to aspect fit. Okay, so in this collection view cell right here, the one that is in front or closest to the user is actually this one. So this image view is underneath this one. If we want the cards to start off face down, let's say, then we are going to select this image view, which is closer to the user, and we are going to change the image to the back of the card. As for the front, right now we're not going to set it because we need to randomly generate the cards through code, and then we're going to set it through code. But I mean, even if you chose card 1 or card 10 right now, it wouldn't be visible, right? Because this back of the card is covering that front of the card. I mean, might as well select card 1, I guess, just to see. Okay, so one more thing that we need to do is if you highlight this collection view cell here and you take a look at this tab right here, you'll see that there is this part that says identifier, and this is called the reuse identifier for the cell, because what you're doing here is you are basically designing a prototype cell for the collection view, and this cell is going to be essentially a template. You know, it's a prototype for how all of the cells in this collection view are going to look like. So the reason we need to give this prototype cell an identifier here is because you can have different types of prototype cells in your collection view. If your collection view shows different types of data, each grid item might not be the same. And so you might have different types of cells in your collection view. So right here, all of our cards look the same and all of the cells look the same, so we're only specifying one prototype cell, but we still have to give it an identifier. I'm just telling you that the reason why we have an identifier is because potentially there could be multiple types of cells in a collection view. So each of those prototypes that you design, you would give it a different identifier. And then plus, as you'll learn in the next video when we learn how to use the collection view, through the Swift code, when you want to grab one of these prototype cells that you designed, you would indicate it by the identifier that you give it here. So we're going to just call this card cell. So type that into the identifier, press enter. That's a great start to our card matching game. Let's recap what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned how to limit your app to specific orientations. You learned about the collection view and how to specify prototype cells. Don't forget that you can download my Xcode project from the link below. Now I want to ask you a question, and please be honest. As you're watching this video series, are you following along and building this project on your own computer? Let me know by commenting below, yes or no. Lastly, if you like this video and you want to see more, please consider subscribing by hitting that red button below. And if you don't want to miss a single video, make sure you hit that bell icon as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.